Hey everyone, Dorky Whatif here with another video. Make sure you like and son. With that, let's begin. He looked down from the roof. He was standing on contemplating what just happened mere moments ago. It was getting dark. His mom would get mad if he came home late. Actually, she'll get angry either way, but he didn't have it in him to care anymore. Today can be described as the best and worst day that he of his life. He got to meet his idol, the man he looked up to his whole life, the only person he thought that way look and see more than a quirk, less fragile boy. Life wasn't fair. He had come to the terms with a long time ago. In a world where 80% of the population has special powers called quirks, is it cool was one of the 20% that didn't. That 20% were considered to be the bottom of society, treated worse than villains for being born different than the majority. Izuku found out that life was unfair very long time ago. All might have saved him from the sludge villain, only to later crush his dreams in a way that made him wish that he hadn't been saved. In the first place, maybe he should follow Kaken advice. His old childhood friend had cornered him at school that day. As usual, Izuku only write it out and hope that he wouldn't add more bruises to the ones he knew he would have to attend to at home. But this time it was different. He didn't end up with a beating. John had gone as far as to give him some friendly advice to take a swan dive off the roof and hope you'll get a quirk in your next life. Today could be any better, right? Having his idol stand in front of him, it simply couldn't help but pass the fact that he couldn't believe he had hoped to hear otherwise. Even for a second, all his life he was never more than a burden to others, looked down upon and bullied by everyone, even by his own best friend. Could he still call him that? No, that title was taken away a long time ago, 10 years ago to be precise, the moment he turned 4, and everyone got their quirks. Humanity evolved and he was left behind. From that moment, his life took a turn for the worst way. His dad left home claiming to have nothing to do with the abomination that his wife gave birth to. I can't have a cordless sign. Inko, it's a disgrace to my family name and society. While delicate, this is smoke curl from his lips, and so it's the woman who birthed something. So each word dripping with disgust was meant for him and him only. Izukumidoriya loved her son, she really did. Her son was declared worthless and therefore took away both her respectful reputation and her husband. Musashi left the house and left Inko to deal with the aberrations that she had given birth to. She tried at first, she really did try to act like nothing was wrong, as if this status wouldn't change the way she looked at her son. Meanwhile, every time she saw him she was reminded of what she had lost. She sees her son smiling and she'll want to lick that expression off his features, because what right did he have to smile when she was suffering? He would see him laughing and she would want to just snuff it out. How dare he laugh when she felt so miserable? Izukumidoriya really did love her son so much that she showed him her love by teaching him the ways of the world, because life wasn't fair, and she would teach him that life was hard and he needed to be rewarded right. He needed to be taught, and if the lesson needed to be beaten into him, she would do it, because what kind of a mother would she be if she let her son go out into the world and unprepared? Standing there on the roof, if you couldn't help but consider ending it all, he would normally push that train of thought through his mind, but in this particular moment, he didn't see the point because he would miss it. As his mind went down an endless self-deprecating spiral, he was snapped out of it by an explosion coming from a distance. He decided it was worth investigating, even though it was already late, and already anticipating the harsh beating he would get either way. He opted to run towards it. Once he arrived and made his way through the crowd, what he saw made his blood run cold. Was none other than the sludge monster that had tried to kill him earlier that day. Did the bottle fall from All Might when he was hanging on to him? Was it his fault? His thoughts stuttered as he realized the sludge villain had a hostage. His eyes squinted to get a look at the person's face, and where it met with familiar spiky blonde hair peeking out of the green sludge. Villain had Kaken. The villain had Kaken it, and it was all his fault. Scorching red eyes filled with fear met green, and before he even realized what he was doing, Izuku was running at full speed towards the monster. Remembering his analysis on hero fights, he opted to look for a weak point, quickly taking advantage of the vulnerable eyes, horrible eyes, and swinging his book bag at it. Everything that happened after that went by a blur. All Might have shown up again and rescued the dead as Izuku was about to be crushed. He got reprimanded for his reckless and stupid behavior. Because obviously, a fragile quirkless kid like him can't just run into a villain's fight. It's a job for the heroes. After a harsh lecture, he left the scene as quickly as he could. His mom would have seen the news. His stomach twisted at the thought of what awaited him back home. Nevertheless, he had to just get it over with so he could finally sleep after this exhausting day. He entered the house hesitantly, making sure to avoid making his presence known. Years of tiptoeing around the house acting as invisible as he could ensure his survival on most days. Especially when Inko felt particularly pissed off she was set off by any action her son made. Usually, he could manage to get to his room without any unpleasant encounters. However, luck wasn't on his side for the moment he slipped off his shoes. He was met with his mother's glare. She was standing in the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest, frown twisting her features promised nothing but pain. Izuku's shoulder tense as he tries to read his mom's move, trying to prepare himself for the inevitable punishment he would severity of it. On normal days she would greet him with the usual of swear words and snide comments if she was particularly in her moods. Things would get violent today, however, he could practically feel the annoyance radiating off her. She must have seen the news, he concluded. Out playing hero again? The hiss was soft but sharper than a knife, digging and slicing away at his face until his panicking heart was exposed. I thought I got it through that thick skull of yours that you would never be a hero. The painful silence was his only response. The only thing that could be heard was the new skater's force coming from the living room TV. What? Got nothing to say, brat. The same angry tone met his ears as his mother took a step closer in his direction. Izuku backed away slightly and spoke, knowing that staying silent or talking back would get him out of this. I'm sorry. Kaken was in trouble. His mumbled words were cut off by a slap to the face. Oh. Was he in trouble now? And what? You thought a useless piece of shit you could have done something to change that. She's tomorrow. Hurts home, making it to good tense even further. NNO, he replied slowly, making sure his voice had no choice of defiance in it. You know you were a bad child today, Izuku-an. And you know what happens to bad children, right? She smirked that ugly smile, a smile that had no place on a face that once held nothing but love towards him. It has been 10 years since he's seen any trace of finest in his mother's expression. He sometimes doubted was there in the first place. They get punished, he mumbled, fear blooming in his forest green eyes, taking him over. Flight instinct screamed at him to run while he still could. But he couldn't. Running or fighting back never meant less pain. He had learned that the hard way. What will it be, I wonder, she says cheerfully, as if talking about a Christmas present she's about to open. You did something really bad today, Izuku-an. Not only did you come home late, but you also managed to do the one thing I tell you to give up on. Maybe it's time for something else. It's been a while since you've been left alone to contemplate on your mistakes. His eyes wounded as he realized what she just meant. Please don't. I promise I won't do it again. Just please don't. A fix's blow to his stomach sent him gasping for air. Please not again, he whispered. Who was that? It was fruitless. She told him down the stairs to the basement, each step one step closer to the hellhole she was dragging him to. When he was having his mom had decided that normal punishments just weren't enough for him to learn his lessons, so she got him the dark box that consisted of an old refrigerator that she had installed in the basement. Every time she would get particularly pissed off at his hero-worshipping behavior, she would drag him there. Lock him inside until she deemed it long enough for him to have learned his lesson. It once lasted 3 days. Izuku wished he died by the second day. He couldn't move and take the emptiness and darkness that he was being subjected to. Left alone to wallow in his self-deprecating thoughts, stomach empty and mouth dry as his tears never seemed to run out. It had been quite some time since he got locked up down there. That seeming as if he learned to hide his hero analysis from his mother, a long time ago. His heart rate sped up, chest come straight and painfully as less and less air made its way into heavy lungs. The sound of a metal boat unlocking followed by the low creak of an old hinges filled the basement. Get in, bright, she hissed, tone leaving no space for argument. Please, it was barely a whisper of almost hidden by his having sobs. He didn't fight back, having learned long ago that struggling only led to more anger, to more pain. Now Izuku. I'm only doing this because you deserve it. Disobeyed me and went against my wishes. We can't have that now. Can we keep push him inside, not caring about the way his head bangs against the metal frame? He looked up, watching as the light faded, as the door closed slowly. He heard the locks clicking, condemning him to the darkness. This boy he was going to be stuck in for who knows how long. Darkness. That's all he knew. All he felt deep within him. It was like all of his senses were shut down as he lay there blind in death to the world around him, everything except for his own rocket breathing, love to his aching ears. He had no sense of time in the black box. He didn't know if it had been hours or days. He just wished it would end. If he was talking about this or life as he knew it, he did not know, nor did he care. He just wished it would end. One way or another, Izuku closed his eyes, praying he would find sleep, praying he would find any kind of escape. Izu? Have you learned your lesson yet? He didn't have the strength to answer. What has it been, 2 days? 3? It felt like a lifetime. A bright light accosted his senses as the refrigerator door was slowly open. A gas of clean air finally. A welcome blessing from the rancid air he'd had to breathe. Inka took one look at her son. Satisfied with the miserable state he was in, she quickly spun on her heels and left. He got up with a tremendous effort, trying not to collapse from dehydration and hunger. He went up the stairs slowly, making a beeline for his room, afraid of trespassing once more, of getting punished again. He stopped, watching as his mother pulled up a chair at the table, food ready on the table. God, how his super just wanted to define every item in sight. Just looking at the dishes sent his mouth watering, stomach growling at the tipping few. He knew that even touching a single plate would mean going back in there. That was something he wanted to avoid at all costs. It didn't stop him from hearing for it. Gathering up whatever remained of his self-control, he painfully walked away to the bathroom for a shower he desperately needed. His body moved on autopilot, mind barely registering his movements as he tried to regain some compulsion after this horrific experience. He barely noticed the tears slipping down his cheeks as he thought about not spending another moment in this god-forsaking house, the water world, training with its deepest sorrows. That night, he barely slept, for the darkness was something he would come to fear with everything he had. He woke up the next morning to a note saying that Inko would have friends over this weekend and that he would be smart to disappear for a couple of days. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Izuku smiled. Sleeping alone in an empty park wasn't that bad. He had a whole weekend without the looming figure of his mother. A whole weekend without the constant fear of being beaten up for every little thing he did. Izuku generally packs a small backpack with clothes and food he snatched from the refrigerator. He ran outside before his mother could come back and change her mind. He walked the entire day, enjoying his freedom while he still could. He walked through the park, watching his parents played with their children and enjoyed themselves. He knew parents didn't treat their children like his mother treated him. The days he used to spend at the Bakugo showed him that. Even though they yelled a lot, he could see the respect and love they had for each other. Kaken once then was painfully close to finding out about them. About the secrets that were kept behind their closed doors. The bruises and cuts were enough for him to be suspicious, but it's super cool, always drug it all pink and creating excuses in lies and leg, come to not only be called court with and worthless but clumsy too. He eventually learned to hide his scars under long sleeve and hurt under forced smiles. His mother too got better at hitting him in the secret places where it would be hard to notice. After one particularly concerning call from the neighbors saying that they had run into Izuku and that he seemed to be hurt. Distracted by his thoughts, he bumped into someone. Send me them both. Some link to the ground. When he looked up, gray eyes met electric blue and his eyes widened as he realized he had just bumped into All Might, well, the skeleton version of the #1 hero. He hastily got up and helped the taller man, apologies flowing from his mouth as he panicked for what he had just done. It's okay, my boy. I'm glad I finally found you. I've been searching for you everywhere. I wanted to talk to you the other day, but you ran off so fast I couldn't find you, the tall man said, voice blooming in excitement. Can we talk privately? Oh, okay, Izuku squeaked, not knowing how to turn down his idol. All Might steered him to a scheduled bench and an isolated part of the park. They both sat down, anxiety growing, and it's too good as the silence between them stretched. I'm sorry, he bladed, knowing he couldn't stand it anymore. He had to get it off his chest. What could you be sorry for, my boy? All Might asked with brothers blowing and confusion. It was my fault, the feeling escaped. If I had just left you alone, none of this way that have happened. He stood up and bowed as low as he could manage. All Might raised his hand to the boy's shoulder, missing the way Izuku flinched movement. My boy, you are wrong. It was my fault the feeling managed to escape. I was careless. I wanted to thank you, Midori-kun, your brave and selfless actions that pushed me to go beyond and save that boy. You showed me how a true hero needed to act. You. A quirkless boy ran into the fray with no regard to his own safety to save another person's life. Many stories are told about heroes who saved the day, but do you know what they all have in common? Their legs move on their own. Midoriya Izuku can be a hero.